Well, my parts came in, so I can finally get around to putting the injector pump onto the tractor. But before I can do that, I've got to sort out this whole business of figuring out the proper timing mark on this flywheel. Now, I know I found one mark on here that denoted the top dead center of cylinder number 1, and I was able to verify that. I took out that energy cell plug there and made sure that the cylinder was on its way up. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking to find out whether or not there's a mark on there that's before top dead center, because this particular pump that I've got, the Rusa Master, is supposed to be timed for end of injection at, I forgot exactly how many degrees before top dead center. So I'm hoping that there's a mark on the flywheel that corresponds to that. So I'm going to see if I can find that today. Alright, so there's the TDC mark coming up. I don't know if you can see it in that hole there, but just above the pointer, there's the line, and letters upside down are TDC. So I know that's top dead center. And right now I'm rotating the engine counterclockwise. So I'm actually going backwards because I want to see, okay, now you can see the TDC is almost at the pointer there. And I want to see whether or not there's another mark before that. So let's see. Let's see, it should just, alright, so, alright, that's just a little before TDC. So I'm going to keep moving in that direction. Gotta put the camera down so I can do this. Well, the next mark that I see is, I don't know if you can see it up on the flat side of the flywheel there. There's a little indentation and there's a dab of yellow paint on that. And then there looks like there might be something written on the flywheel right there, but I can't quite tell. Let's see if I'm going to try and clean that up a little bit. Well, I've been around this thing a couple of times and I've cleaned some more, and I'm still satisfied that there are no definitive marks to indicate where the timing should be on this thing for the pump, other than the TDC line. I do have that little indentation with the yellow dab of paint on it. That might be the mark, but I can't know for sure. So I'm going to have to come up with some other plan. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set this so that it's exactly on TDC. And then I'm going to go around here to the front pulley. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some tape. And I'm going to mark. I'm going to put a strip of tape on here. And I'm going to mark where TDC is on that pulley. And then I'm going to try and determine the diameter of that part of the pulley right there. And then I'm going to do some math and some creative work with some paper and see if I can't determine what the distance is along the arc that I would have to move past the TDC mark, or before the TDC mark in this case, to correspond to the number of degrees that I need to find. I'm going to set it that way, and then I'm going to go back and look in my inspection window and see if that little indentation with the yellow blob of paint is pointing at TDC. And if it is, well, then I will have confirmed that that is in fact the right mark. Alright, that probably sounds really confusing, but you'll see what I mean when I do it. Okay, so the first thing I did was I cleaned off the area of the pulley here, closest to the cover, and I cleaned off this area of the cover. And then I took a measurement of the OD of that area right in there, and it's 3.750, so 3 inches 750 thousandths. And Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some tape on that. Alright, so now I've applied some tape and I've lined up the mark for TDC on the flywheel exactly at TDC, and I made corresponding marks with a Sharpie so I know that now this pulley is in the position for TDC, and I left the tape blank going back this way, which would be before TDC. So somewhere along this tape, hopefully, I'm going to be able to figure out how many degrees I need to go. And the way I'm going to figure out the degrees is I'm going to take my measurement of that OD and I'm going to cut a circle the exact size of that pulley OD out of some paper, and then I'm going to start trying to figure out how many degrees it will take for that to rotate, what the linear distance will be on the arc. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dimension I took of that pulley, the outside dimension, which is 3.750, and I'm going to make a circle on the paper that size. So I reset my vernier caliper to 1/2 of that dimension, and now I'm going to set my compass to that. Now I've got a circle drawn the exact diameter of that pulley. Now I've drawn one line straight through the center, and if I draw a second line 90 degrees to that line, then I'll be able to determine where the 90-degree points are on the circle. So I'll use a right triangle to do that. So from here to here is 90 degrees, from here to here is another 90 degrees, which is 180, and then 360. So now, if I draw a line from that point to that point, and then make a point at the halfway point on that line, and then draw a line from that point to the center, that will be the 45-degree mark. So now I know that that is from 0 to here is 45 degrees, and from 45 to 90 is another 45. So now if I repeat that process and I draw a line from here to here and bisect that line, I will be able to find half of 45, which will be the 22.5 degrees. Now I've repeated the process again, and so now I know that this would correspond to 22.5 degrees, and this would correspond to 11.25 degrees. Actually, I did this wrong. I should have done it on this side, but I can rectify that by just changing this to a 0. Okay, so from here to here is 11.25 degrees, and then from here to here is 22.5 degrees, and you can see that's a pretty small distance. So now I'm going to set my dividers. So I'm going to set my dividers by holding the points right on 0 and 11.25, and then I'm going to transfer this to my tape on the pulley, and then I'll know that that corresponds to 11.25 degrees before top dead center. Okay, so now I've got 3 marks on the pulley. I've got a mark at TDC, I've got a mark at 11.25 degrees before TDC, and I got a mark at 22.5 degrees before TDC. Now let's go check the specs and see where I need to be. Okay, so here's what I've got for a manual. This is the Oliver Shop manual. Somebody had handwritten on here, timing Rusa pump. This is the hard copy that was then scanned, turned into a DVD, and then sold on eBay. So I printed it out, and this is definitely for the Rusa pump because I've got my dimensions and stuff here. This is for the DBGFC 427 1BH, 2BH, 3BH. We can only hope that the timing is going to be the same for my 1ED pump. So we know that rotation is clockwise. Speed is 1/2 engine speed. Timing. Here we have the 770 and the 880 series, and it says 6 degrees BTDC, 6 degrees before top dead center, end of injection. So 6 degrees. That's pretty small. So I know where 11 1/4 degrees is. So I should set that roughly halfway between where I've got it now and the 11 1/4, and that should put me in the ballpark of 5 or 6 degrees. Then I'm going to see whether or not that mark in the window lines up, because that would be really nice if it did.